everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, crystal. Excellent. So before I get started, it would be kind of good to know, by a show of hands, how many people actually in the room are focused on fashion or are interested in getting into fashion or their businesses around fashion. Quite a few. Okay, well, I'm Irene, as Amy said, and my business is called TTYA London, which she did explain stands for Taller Than Your Average. And I came up with the name because I love Biggie Smalls, and in Hypnotize he has a saying that says thicker than your average, and I thought it would be cool to have a brand that said taller than your average. So that's where my name came from, and this is an amazing image from my first runway show I showed in October last year at Lagos Fashion Week. So yeah, let's talk about inclusivity. I think it's kind of like a hot topic at the moment. All the kind of brands are diversifying about inclusivity and diversity, and standing at 5'11", as you can see, growing up, it was really difficult for me to find clothes that fit. I had older brothers, so I would always wear a double XL men's shirt to make it work. And I remember an interesting story of at school, the girls were allowed to wear trousers, and at that time there was no shop in London that did trousers that fit my leg length. And later on, Long Tall Sally was around, but it was a bit frumpy, and you never really wanted to say that your trousers were from Long Tall Sally. So, yeah. Then obviously I noticed a gap in the market for tall women, and I created TTY London as an apparel brand offering tall women a range of, which started off as branded staples. So your jersey skirt, maxi skirts, maxi dresses, long sleeve tops, all your kind of wardrobe essentials. And like Amy said earlier, since launching in 2013, my first stockist was Selfridges, and I was the first tool-specific brand to launch in there. And then I launched in Barney's in New York, which was amazing. Again, similar, same tool-specific brand to launch on there. And then my final and probably my biggest stockist is ethos.com. And I'm a big believer in 360, and think the universe has an amazing way of giving back to you. I was telling the guys earlier that I actually wrote my business plan here at the British Library. I came and did all my research here because I had to find statistics, and when I was doing all my research and trying to just generate data, because I wanted to find how many women over the age of, or between the ages of 16 to 24 were over 5'9". So it was a lot of statistics that just didn't exist, and it was trawling through loads of journals and loads of records. So I did that here. So it's amazing. It's a double whammy for me to be able to speak here today, because basically this all started here, to be honest. Wow. So yeah, Glamour magazine labelled my brand one of the coolest fashion brands for tall girls ever, and it's been worn by some amazing women, from Jordan Dunn to Cardi Kloss to Elle Macpherson to Jessie J. I love Cardi B, so as Cardi would say, press. Here's some of the press that I've generated since I started the brand. I've been in editorials and online pieces from Elle to Vogue to Wonderland to ID to Sunday Times Style to Company and to Look magazine, and then international press like Vogue Netherlands. I actually was also commissioned to design and curate a collection for 4 seasons for Long Tall Sally. So, like I said, the universe has a funny way of throwing things back at you, 360. The Sold Out collection had a billboard in Times Square, and it was featured in American Vogue. One of the lessons that I did learn from this collaboration is I actually spent a lot of time investing in somebody else's business. Again, they wanted to collaborate with me because I was the new kid on the block. I was cool. I had a really cult following. But what I didn't learn what I learned afterwards, and I wish someone had told me at the time, was to make sure that my business was building the same momentum that I was building for somebody else at the same time. So that's something that I learned. They had no Instagram, they had nothing when I went to work with them, and I really helped them integrate socially and commercially. So yeah, here's a couple of pictures of some of the girls. Cardi Kloss and Jordan went to a Balmain show actually wearing my clothes, which was amazing. So yeah, like I said earlier, I was invited to show last year at Lagos Fashion Week. So I debuted my first catwalk collection. I actually shot my lookbook in Lagos as well. I had an all-female team. I took some girls out here from London and also recruited locals on on the other side in Lagos. So yeah, my whole team and my whole crew were all women of colour. So yeah, we shot the campaign in a bus station in Lagos, and if any of you are Nigerian in here, you know that how bizarre that would have been. But literally, like by the end of the day, we had about 400 people, like literally just standing around watching us shooting, which was actually really fun, but also quite scary. But from that collection, ASOS, I actually took a break from ASOS for 2 seasons just because I felt like at that time they were kind of dictating to me like what the look and feel of my brand was going to be. And I feel like sometimes with suppliers, you feel as a new brand that you've got to kind of say yes to everything because you don't really want to lose them as a customer. But I felt like the essence of what my brand was about started to get lost because it just kind of was aligning with my stockists and not necessarily with what my ethos was about. So I took a break from ASOS, and after I showed at Lagos Fashion Week, I was able to go back to them with a collection that not only was I super proud of, but was actually gaining momentum commercially as well. So ASOS actually did a 10-piece edit from that Lagos collection. And this was the edit. Again, I pushed for a woman of colour for the collection to be shot on, which for them was actually quite crazy, and to find a tall model as well that could fit in all the product. So I was adamant, and one thing I have learned is about like really standing up for what you believe in as well. I feel like sometimes when you're a new business, you feel like you have to conform to what your suppliers or what people are going to want from you, and you kind of get lost in what the ethos of what your brand is about. So I really took it back. I was able to introduce traditional dyeing techniques from local women in Nigeria, and I was able to also incorporate my Nigerian heritage with my Western upbringing. So yeah, that's what the collection was kind of representing, and this was some of the edit pieces from the collection. These are some of the amazing ladies that have been shot in it, from massive bloggers to models like Lila and Glil and Iman. I also did a collaboration with a friend of mine because she does swimwear, and that was picked up by Farfetch. So we did a limited edition swimwear run in the Python print, which was indigo dyed in Nigeria. So yeah, that was sold on Farfetch. And yeah, just to kind of summarize and round up, I did actually start a platform which is called TTYA Talks, and it was I found that when I first got started, I never really had any mentors or women in the industry who were kind of pioneering already. It was very much about like, you know, going to workshops and like connecting and or networking with other people who were on the same level as you. So I started TTYA Talks because during my journey, and I'm lucky enough to have come from a nightlife background, so I do know a lot. I basically, when I was growing up and funding TTYA, I basically worked nights in the nightclub. So it gave me the platform to know a lot of artists and work with a lot of talent because everybody wanted to be my friend because they wanted to get into the club. But again, the universe has a 360 way of being able to provide for you. So now a lot of that talent are girls who like wear my clothes, and it really helped me to be able to have the network. So I've been able to give that back in TTYA Talks. So it's basically a platform where I'm able to bring together entrepreneurs and women who are pioneering in the creative industry. I launched it back in 2015, and my first panelist was Karen Franklin, MB. I'm pretty sure like most of you know who she is. She's amazing. And one of my best friends, FKA Twigs. We focused on kind of industry-specific topics, from the music behind the business behind music, to starting your own fashion label, to Vanessa Kingori, who's now at Vogue. She talked about the behind the scenes of how the actual magazine industry actually works. So it's to give everyone kind of like a more information on the insider from people who are actually doing those roles. So yeah, I've collaborated with brands such as Nike, Beats by Dre, Louis Vuitton, as well as curating events and connecting women globally for the Soho House Group. So I did an amazing event with Beats by Dre for International Women's Day, where I connected women of colour who work in the creative industry. So yeah, you can see here that my own Georgia. So yeah, TTYA is basically my ethos is for the inclusive let me rewind. An inclusive space for the excluded girl. So that's basically what my brand has always been about, and that's what I always try to pioneer. So yeah, that's me.
Oh my gosh. I've got 3 zillion questions for you, but the first one is, when are you doing a plus size range? I want all those clothes in my size.
I can only do what I know.
I know.
It's personal.
I'm
So
only
that's why
teasing.
it's
I'm teasing, but they are absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
And I guess that personal story comes out so strong in your brand. How did you find it engaging with the mainstream fashion world?
Difficult. But like I said, I'm a firm believer in everything happening for a reason and the way you are kind of set up. So in all of my, apart from Barney's obviously because it's an American stockist, I actually worked at Selfridges. It was one of my first jobs that I had just on the shop floor. You know, when you're at college, you want a bit of extra money. Like if I wanted those fresh Nikes, I had to be able to provide it for myself. So as most people do when they're in uni or in college, you take a part-time job. So I understood what Selfridges' ethos was with. They wanted to be the one-stop shop for every type of woman. But I thought, well, if I'm tall, I can't shop here, so it invalidates your ethos. So when I had my buyers meeting, that was literally the first thing I said. Like, I know your ethos is the one-stop shop for every kind of woman, and I was like, as a tall woman, I can't shop here. And then they were just like, whoa. And I was like, but I have a solution. That's how it kind of started.
Yeah, and that solution, how did that, I mean, you kind of raced through your story, but I want to dig a little bit deeper about that moment where you thought, right, this is what I really want to do. I mean, we seem to jump from you wearing your older brother's clothes through to you being this most amazing global fashion designer. But I'm sure there was a lot of stuff in the middle that happened there. What was it about fashion? Was it really a practical solution to a personal problem? Or was it bigger than that?
Sorry. I'm flicking too much. Basically, I had worked in fashion before I started TTYA. So, like I said earlier, I started my fashion journey on the shop floor, which led me to doing visual merchandising. So I used to do all the windows at Selfridges. And then from then I went into styling. So that's where I met a lot of talent. So I used to style Mark Ronson, Daniel Merriweather, like Jessie J, like back in the day. And I actually got a job at ASOS. So I used to be the head of women's styling at ASOS.com for 3.5 years. And basically everything at ASOS, but not so much anymore, but it used to get retouched so much. They used to spend so much money on retouching because a lot of the models were super tall, but none of the product used to fit. So like they used to retouch the sleeve lengths, they used to retouch the denim, the jeans length. So I used to tell everyone, always watch the videos when you shop on ASOS because you can't retouch the videos. So when I remember after I left ASOS, I took a break because I'd done the jump from college to uni to working lifestyle, and I got a job to intern. Actually, just before ASOS, I got a job to intern in Complex magazine in New York, and that basically taught me everything about editorial and shooting. So I'm working with talent. So we shot like Kanye West and Pharrell for like the cover of Complex. So again, I was able to understand the editorial side of fashion, and then working at ASOS, I was able to understand e-com. And when I worked at ASOS, it was called As Seen on Screen. I don't know if any of you guys remember that. This is like 12 years ago. And it was when it was like, oh, Cheryl Cole was wearing a sparkling dress. Let's copy it and sell it for £8. And it was at that, when I got to ASOS, it was just at that turning point where they were stocking more designer brands. And because I had my background from working in Selfridges, they wanted me to kind of come in and be able to curate it so that it was more lifestyle as to per se of just being this, oh, we're just going to rip off dresses that we've seen on Celebrity. So that's where I was able to understand e-com. So when I left, I was like, well, the models are just as tall as me. I've been able to meet all these amazing people at ASOS. So like all my crew that I met at ASOS helped me shoot my first lookbook. So all the models that I worked with, the photographers, the retouchers. So it was just like, basically felt like up until that point, everything had aligned so that I had kind of essentially curated my team. So then, those are the people that now helped me when I launched my own brand. So a model called Jamie Guns, who was like ASOS's biggest selling model at the time, who we became friends with because we worked together every single day for 2.5 years. She was the first model for my campaign. And working at ASOS, again, that gave me equipped me with the skills to be able to understand how the e-commerce world worked. So when I left ASOS, then I started consulting for other brands, because that was at the turning point when everyone was starting to switch to e-com. So I used to do stuff for Amazon, I used to do bits and bobs, and then I went to Australia actually for 4 months randomly, because there's this amazing Australian brand that I was obsessed with called Staple, who wanted to go onto e-com, and they didn't know how to do it, so they were just literally poaching ASOS people, as they do. And I went there to start that, and that's when I had the time to kind of think about, I can't travel lightly. I can't always be wearing double XL or wearing super men's 36 or spending all of this money on tailoring stuff. And I was just like, why don't I just have like a basic wardrobe essentials? And that's where the idea for TTYA came up. And it was just all jersey to begin with, and then it now elevated into being more than just jersey and going into evening wear. As the brand grew, I needed to, like, people was like, I need prom dress, I need this, I need tailoring. And I was like, okay, like trying to like figure it out. But it's always, the essence of it has always been about like what I felt I needed as a tall woman and what I felt was missing on the high street.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating story. And
Sorry,
I'm wondering,
a bit of a long one.
Is there a problem with the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mic check, 1, 2. Oh,
yes. Yeah. So I was interested when you said there in your presentation about mentoring. Mm-hmm. And this is something that, you know, as women we're often told we need. You need to get a mentor.
Yeah.
But you said that you didn't have one.
No.
And I'm wondering, well, first of all, why? Do you think it would have helped you? Do you think having a mentor is really important? And are you now, I imagine that loads of young women want you to be their mentor now. And so can maybe you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I never had a mentor. If I could probably rewind it a little bit, I definitely would have had someone that was pioneering in this industry, just to kind of guide me through, similar to what Rick said earlier, in that knowing that you make so much mistakes, but part of actually making your mistakes is learning from those mistakes as well. And I was able to kind of, I think I was a bit lucky in the sense that I didn't, because I came from the business that I now went into, I still had certain basic equipped skills. So I understood how something should look on e-com, how to shoot it, the lighting, the product description, sizing. Like, I understood how that needed to be because I had worked in the industry. So I was lucky enough to have been able to have the back-end knowledge, if that makes sense. Yeah. But I do definitely feel like it would have been great to just maybe, and if I'm going to be honest with you, at a senior level at ASOS at that time, it was all men. So there wasn't very many women that were at a senior level within, and I feel like that's also a big issue within fashion and within creative. Like, it tends to be like all the creative roles are like filled with women, and then when you start to get to like exec level, it's literally all men. And even when I went to Long Tall Sally, I literally walk into a boardroom full of short men talking about tall women's fashion. Like, it just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. It just didn't add up, you know? But that's the reality of where things were or are, you know? So I definitely feel like if I could have rewound it, it would have been amazing to have. Yeah. And I did, I guess, get that when I met Corinne Franklin. We went for coffee. Like, I emailed her randomly, and she was just like, just call me. She like gave me her house line number, and I was just like, who still sends their landline number? Like,
who still has a landline?
But also I was just like, oh my God, I've got her house number. This is so dope. But I like called her and I was just talking to her about the frustrations, and obviously she's a massive advocate for, you know, diversity, inclusivity. She's been pioneering it for years. So when I met her, it kind of switched it around, and it made me feel like, okay, my role and my voice is to push and to be there for the excluded girl, because for so long we've always kind of been left with the scraps, or the bigger stores will do it just to say that they had their finger in every pie, but not necessarily do it well. So I always felt like my strong point, even if it wasn't just talking about tall women's clothing, it's about, if we're really going to have this inclusivity conversation, then let's do it correctly, and let's cater for every type of woman.
Yeah. And one question about social media, because I imagine, well, I mean, your clothes are just so lush and so colorful. And I'm sure that social media has played a huge role in your brand growing and expanding. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of that?
Yeah. I'm a very visionary person. Like, I love mood boards, I love images, I love researching. I'm obsessed with Pinterest, obsessed with it. And I feel like that's probably why I've gravitated more towards Instagram as to any other platform, just because visually I find it works best for me. So when Instagram actually brought on Instagram Shop, it was amazing for me, because then it was difficult because I wish they had Instagram Shop for Dummies, because it was a lot of late nights, like YouTubing, other people YouTubing about Instagram Shop, and that's how I learned how to do it. But Instagram's played a massive role in my business, because a lot of the girls who have worn my clothes, or the products that's been on TV, like Wendy, I don't know if anyone knows who Wendy Williams is in the US, she wore my brand a lot. And she always used to talk about, like, she had her YouTube channel, so after every show, she does a YouTube channel about what she's been wearing, and she always used to rant about how she loved my brand because she was so tall. So what that did now is, like, it would engage people to have to search for me. And the good thing about Instagram is it's all imagery led, so I could post all the product pictures and all the lookbooks and constant content, and even with the models who wear the clothes, it always kind of came back to, like, it being about the brand as to per se. And also because I'm tall, it's almost like I didn't really want to become the face of my brand. At the beginning, I kind of hid away from, like, being the face of it, because I kind of thought it was like, let me just use models and book everyone and, like, do it the standard way that most online retailers do. And then I was just like, hold on, that's not really cost effective. If I'm 5'11", I can actually, like, wear my own, and that's where my hashtag I wear my own garms comes from, because it's like, I love Wiley, obviously, and I grew up on grime music, but it was about, like, okay, well, I can't say I wear my own garments, so I used to be like, hashtag I wear my own garms, and that's kind of how that started.
Brilliant. I could just chat to you forever
Probably,
and ever.
no.
But I am aware that we've got Jamal sitting there.
Restriction.
I've got the pressure of, like, going off YouTube.
Thank you so much. Let's hear it for
Thank you.
Irene.